And I think we're back. Uh, as always, it's good to be here. It's good to be able to share this space with you. Uh, a lot's been happening, but it's been a lot of good as well. It's like there's a mixture of things that's happening, but I'm there's progress being made in a lot of the aspects of my life, and I'm looking forward to the next few weeks, and I'm excited about it. But we're not going to get into that right now. We're going to do what we say we will do every time that we are here, and that is talk creativity. And we always start with the an exercise in mindfulness. We do it the same way all the time, so let's do that now. 10 seconds, focus on your breath and be present in this moment. Starting now. And how we always follow that up is a good riddle puzzle to kind of get your mind going, um, and just get that boost of energy. I think we all need that. I'm a little groggy today, but hopefully my voice is still projecting well. But the riddle for today is what has no hands but might knock on your door, and if it does, you better open it. What has no hands but might knock on your door, and if it does, you better open it. So, uh, last night was interesting. It was a celebration. A good friend of mine, a good brother in general, um, Jeff. He is the founder of the Gentleman's Factory, and it's a community um, geared towards building spaces for men of color, safe spaces for them to actually feel comfortable, spaces where they can create, where they can collaborate, um, and everything uh, as defined by what a gentleman is supposed to be. It fits under that umbrella, and it's available to you in that particular space. But he's expanding, and he opened another location here in New York City, and I went. As a member, I went, and like I said, Jeff is a great dude. And when we see each other, we always embrace each other. I have a tendency to, if people that I'm around, I try to pour into, and there is some reciprocity there because I feel like a lot of people that I'm around pour back into me, and it's great to be in those particular spaces. But yeah, so as I was there to celebrate him, and one thing I like about Jeff, he actually reminds me of my brother Troy, in the sense that um, whenever they introduce me, sometimes I listen to how they describe me and to other people, and I'm almost in awe because in the midst of them doing this introduction, I get lost in the person that they're describing, almost to the point where I don't even feel like it's me. So I'm there sitting and I want to be introduced to the person that they're describing, and then at the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, this, but that's Swale, right? And I'm in that moment when I hear my name again, then I realize, oh, you were describing me. And then there's this thing that happens where I look at the person that I'm being introduced to, and my first thought is like, I don't know that I could live up to what you were just introduced to. And I may say that jokingly, but something is happening in that particular moment. And it's almost, if it's not the same thing, it's this concept, or um, this thing known as imposter syndrome, and it's this phenomenon where there's a psychological pattern where you feel as if though or high achieving people, and creatives feel as if though they are not who the world believes that they are. Almost like there's self doubt in who you are and your abilities and the things that you've done, and it happens to all of us. And I was reminded of that twice, yesterday or last night. One, during this introduction, but in two, it's no secret that uh, I'm fascinated by human creativity, and that comes up in conversation regularly. And uh, another time I was being introduced, one of the things that they brought up was the fact that I invented Belt Bar, and the guy I was being introduced to was fascinated by that, and like I could see uh, like a spark in him, and I knew he wanted to ask questions. I knew he wanted to engage in some capacity, and then uh, later on in the evening, I had walked off. I may have had a call that I had to take, and then he saw me and he walked over and he's like, "Bro, I'm fascinated by this idea and this thing." And we started talking. Found out he himself is a creative, living in his creativity, and he does a lot of photography, videography, like content. And in an honest moment, he said, "I'm at a point where I'm doubting whether or not I can live off of this." Not because it's not generating any money. He has clients, he has all these things, but um, it, it's almost like there's a confidence issue. But if you were to look at it, you would question why that would be. And in conversation with him, I could tell he is actively living in his creativity. The way how he describes the relationship he has with his customers or his clients. One of the things he said was when he hears his clients talk, it's almost melodic, right? And that's a part of creativity. It's this idea of, it's like um, it's layered. It's a layered approach to the world. So it's like some people hear words and other people hear melodies, and um, so it was this thing. And in this conversation, I guess we unearthed, or we brought to light, the fact that there is some imposter syndrome there as well. And it was unique because, or it was interesting because here we are in a space where we're celebrated for the things that we've done, and in those particular moments, there is something in the back of our minds that keep reminding us or telling us that, hey, it's almost like this whisper that says, you are not who you say you are, and they'll find out. And then, but why is that? Why is it that imposter syndrome exists, and why do we have to experience it? And for us as creatives, that could be um, uh, devastating, right? Because a huge part of who we are as creative um, relies heavily on the things that we've done and how they are appreciated. And because of that, we are in a constant fear of being like exposed, and because of that fear, um, we start to not want to take any risks anymore. Um, we try to limit who and what we're around, and it almost it kind of limits what is possible in our own creative brain, because this could be the thing that exposes us as fraud. um, and that's a challenge because one, it stifles creativity. um, and we had talked about in times past that creativity is risk taking, and if we're living in a space where we are uncomfortable taking risks because we feel as if though that is going to be the risk that exposes us. That is a tough space to be in as a creative, and because we're no longer taking risk, um, because now we feel like we're being scrutinized and measured, and we seek um, perf- perfection. And I think perfection is one of the greatest enemies of creativity, greatest adversaries of creativity. It makes me, and when I hear the word perfect, so there's this thing with my kids. We don't say perfect, and it happens naturally in conversation. I say, "Oh, that's perfect," and then one of them might say, "Hey, Dad, we don't say perfect." But when I say perfect, it's a shortened version of me saying imperfectly perfect, meaning I acknowledge whatever flaws exist, and I'm okay with those flaws, and I see it for what it, it is intended to be. And I think that is how I describe perfect. But for a lot of us, we chase perfection because of the pressures that we subconsciously put on ourselves. But um, as much as we feel like the pressure comes from society and the people around us and the spaces we occupy, in reality, it comes from uh, um, our own selves. It's a psychological thing, and it's hard to overcome. It's hard to be this thing or live up to these expectations that it almost feels that other people put on you. But this is a result of the amazing work that you've done to this point. It is a result of the art that you've created, the feeling that you've allowed these people to experience through your work. Um, and sometimes that can be a little overwhelming. I think it's something that I constantly battle with. Like I and I know the expectations I have of myself, and they're far greater than what any expectation um, anybody has for me. But I feel like sometimes it weighs heavy, um, and I think for a lot of us creatives, we go through that. That is something that we actively battle with, and it impacts our ability um, to create. One of the issues with uh, uh, chasing perfection, it's like we constantly feel like whatever we're creating is not good enough, and we keep trying to make it better. Um, and by doing so, we force ourselves to not allow creativity to flow organically and flow naturally, um, because of these I hate to say that, these unrealistic expectations, and we start to experience burnout unconsciously because of this constant, oh, it's not ready yet, oh, they expect more from me, they expect better from me, they expect this and they expect that, um, and it's not because the work isn't amazing. I think it's purely psychological, and that again that is difficult to overcome. um, And I think one way to do it is just embracing the idea of imperfection. Um, and accepting that it is okay, or at least redefining what perfection means to you. As I was just saying, how for me it's perfection is just, or for it to be perfect for me is just a shortened version of imperfectly perfect. And I think if we look at it that way, I think we're better able to embrace this idea of um, not being perfect all the time, or ever. Um, and listen, we there's this we battle ourselves a lot, um, and some days we are as positive. We are the positive reinforcement that we need to encourage ourselves to always create. But within us too, there is a negative voice um, that wants to get us to believe that we are not who we say we are. Um, and you can't always ignore it. I don't. I think it's unrealistic to think that we will always be in a space where we can live above our own negative thoughts. And I don't want to set those unrealistic goals for you, or those unrealistic expectations for you, and I'm not going to set it for myself either, right? But we have to recognize the negative thoughts when they're there, acknowledge them. Okay, I hear you, but I know better. I recognize what is happening here and what's triggering this. But if I were to look back at what I've done the last time I experienced this, beautiful work came from it. And not only beautiful work, but work that you're actually proud of. And again, unfortunately, a lot of our validation, especially as creatives, comes from it comes externally. It comes from other people, because generally, rarely do we just make or create for ourselves, right? It happens, and it happens a lot, but for a lot of us, our creations, our art, it is experienced and appreciated by other people, and that's how we measure our success, and how we measure the quality of our work. Um, and it is tough to continuously feel pressure to have to deliver at such a high level all the time. I don't wish that on anyone, but unfortunately, that's just the nature of the spaces that we're in, and how our creativity manifests itself. But we have to continue to challenge ourselves. We have to continue to take that pressure and uncomfortableness and doubt, and transform it into something positive, that gives you affirmation and reassurance, and peace of mind, and remind yourself that, yo, I am him, I'm her, I'm all these things. I am everything that You believe I am, and I am more. I am a creative genius, and I will wear that every single day. And it is a part of what makes my crown so shiny. And every now and then the crown will tilt, but I will adjust it and I will put it right back to where it needs to be and put it right back in place. And I think for a lot of us creatives, imposter syndrome affects us like more than we want to acknowledge, because I feel like we have to be this person to these people a lot. I want to I want to that close out the conversation, and I want to do so by kind of saying this. I think we had talked about it a few times in a few of the episodes of how important it is to celebrate ourselves, um, celebrate our little wins, the big ones, the little celebrate all our wins. How important it is to collaborate. Uh, how important it is to be receptive to feedback. How important it is um, to be around other creatives, to be around creativity, and that those things help with overcoming self-doubt, overcoming creative hurdles, um, but it also helps to overcome imposter syndrome, which I believe it's one of those things. It's not real unless you give it merit or credence. It is it's almost like a figment of your imagination, because it's purely psychological. Because in the real world, in the physical, everything that you've ever achieved, that your creativity got you, you earned it and you deserved it because the work is there to prove it. They're not here because of what you said, they're here because of what you did. And I don't want you to undervalue that. And as I'm saying that, I'm telling myself the same thing. I cannot undervalue the things that I've done, the creative work, how it's impacted people. And it's that impact and the feeling they got from experiencing the things that I've created compels them to introduce me the way that they introduced me. So the next time it happens, I don't have to get lost in who this person is and forget that person is actually me. And I want the same for you. Whenever it happens again, embrace it and create more. It'll be a reminder that you are exactly who you say you are. With that, I will end how we started. What has no hands but might knock on your door? And if it does, you better answer. Opportunity. As always, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to next week. Go be great.